What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mac here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you, and I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed, lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mac. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter podcast. Today I got a cool episode dealing all about food, and all you foodies out there, get ready to get your mental mind just salivating with all the thoughts that we're going to be talking about. We got Jeremiah Doughty. By the way, I think I need to read. Is it Doughty or Doughty?
It is Doughty, like a Dow with a TY.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can say it. You know what? You don't have to redo it because everybody screws it up. Keep it on here. It's part of the nature. At least you didn't put an ER in there. When Doughty came out on America's or whatever that American Idol is.
Yep.
Then it became Doughty. At least here in LA, we have Drew Doughty, who is the number one defensive player in all of hockey. And so to have him here, at least everyone now knows how to pronounce my last name in LA, Orange County, just because our star defensive men for the past 10 years has been a Doughty. So it's kind of cool.
That's so funny. I've always, we've talked about you. I've followed you for so long, but then all of a sudden I was like, oh shoot, I got to make sure I pronounce this guy's name right. So Jeremiah, I apologize.
No, I mean, my entire life is either they screw up the first name or the last name. So
yeah. Well, how do you screw up Jeremiah?
You'd be surprised. And they like to shorten it. They're like, hey, Jeremy. I'm like,
that's not my name.
No, there's no Y in there.
You ever get called Maya?
That's what my whole family calls me.
Yeah.
And then my wife's family calls me Germ, and so it's funny because it's like Jeremiah when they get together.
I tried to talk my wife into naming one of our children Jeremiah, and she was like, "Nah, doesn't work." She's like,
It
"I can't
you know
imagine
what?
holding a baby and calling the baby Jeremiah." She
Yeah,
said it.
it's a very old school name. I like it because there's not very many around, unless I'm not saying this any way other way, but unless you live in a very low income area in certain parts of the country where certain ethnicities take over, then it becomes a very common name. But in the most people don't know about it. That's why Jeremiah was a bullfrog. I still get sang to it. Every day of my life, I walk somewhere, they're like Jeremiah. I'm like, oh, never heard that one before. So
That's funny.
it is what it is. I
Be,
enjoy it.
being a school teacher, I come across names all the time. And unless the kids correct me on how to actually pronounce their name, and by the way, names have become progressively more difficult to pronounce over like the last 10 years. All of a sudden, it's like,
Oh yeah.
whew, I didn't know that it was pronounced like that, Orange Jello
You
is
didn't realize
orange.
it was pronounced lemon. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, is
Lemon
orange.
Jello
Yeah,
or Lamangelo. Wasn't it
yeah,
Lamangelo?
or Angelo for the orange Jello people.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make fun of if your name is,
Ladasha.
yeah, L and a dash with an A, La Dasha.
True story. I was in Mississippi with the Mossy Oak boys, and we went to this grocery store, and this is 100% truthful. On her name tag, she had the entire alphabet A through Z on her name tag. Very, she was a big sister. She was an awesome lady, and I was like, listen, I'm big on names, and I like to pronounce it correctly because my name always gets screwed up. How do you pronounce your name? Because it's 26 letters. She goes, oh, it's Ashley. I went, what? She's like, my name's Ashley. It starts with an A and it ends with a Y. The Z is silent.
Hmm.
So her mom literally named her the entire alphabet
Yeah.
and called her Ashley.
Oh man.
Could you imagine, like, growing up with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, writing your name at school?
Takes a
I
while.
guess she knew the alphabet pretty early, but
She definitely would learn it quick. My wife, being a nurse, has come across some different stories in the hospitals, and one patient, that the story that I heard, I don't know if this was from my wife or when we were given birth from one of the nurses, but um, name saw a name on a board in the hospital and was like, "Oh, that's a pretty name," and named their daughter Chlamydia because it was very pretty name. And I was like, "There you go."
hey, what's in a name but a
Right,
face, right?
right, exactly. Okay, so let's
Now that we got that out of the way, it's
yeah,
pronounced Dow. Dow.
Doughty, Jeremiah
There
Doughty.
you go.
I love
Nailed
it.
it.
It's a strong name, very strong
Yeah,
name.
that's why I had to grow the beard out so I looked like a Jeremiah Johnson.
It makes sense, you know. Man,
That's right. That's right.
strong.
This is the COVID beard. I've actually trimmed off 6 inches. So
That's amazing. When was the last time you shaved?
March 15th. Oh, I
2010?
mean, last time I've actually
Yeah,
had a soft
took the
face.
beard. Yeah.
When my wife was pregnant with our now 7-year-old daughter.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm having a visual right now. If I put my hand over like your lower chin, I'm like, oh yeah, I see what this guy looks like.
Like a baby face.
You
We
do.
did that, on Snapchat, there's that filter where you pull it off, it takes your beard off. My wife's like, no. I remember when you started growing it, I was like, I don't like it. She's like, no, don't ever shave it. And I was like, all right, sounds good. She wants it nice and trim like yours, like a well groomed man. And I told her I'll cut it after hunting season. But hunting
Beautiful.
season never ends.
It-
So
It's funny how that works.
there's always hogs and predators to kill. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, let's get back into this. I know that we both got kids, but my wife's upstairs and your wife probably too. So whatever, we'll talk all night long. So grab some popcorn, grab yourself some coffee or a whiskey, and just sit down, enjoy it because it's probably like a 3-hour podcast. Just from what I'm gathering right now.
Well, you can't stop it once it gets going, right? It's
Never.
You never want
It's
to stop.
It's like the Holy Spirit. You just got to let it go.
Yep, let it flow. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, getting us back on track. We got wait, is it Doughty? Doughty, yeah,
Nailed it. Nailed it.
nailed it. Jeremiah Doughty from Field to Plate, wild game chef, and just all around awesome dude. Takes a stand for hunting, takes a stand for all the people who have never experienced what hunting provides. You have heard on this podcast before that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure. And for those people who have never experienced what that is all about, it is revolutionary. And at the same time, when we talk about food, and the food aspect has really taken over within the last couple of years within the hunting world, like as far as a recruitment tool to get people involved. When you got people like Jeremiah at the forefront, just creating awesome meals with wild game, it's hard to beat. So, Jeremiah, thank you for joining us for an episode. That was a killer intro.
Yeah. Don't worry, you can edit it however you want to edit it, but I think it's perfect. It is who I am.
I love it. Okay, so for the listeners who have never heard of Jeremiah, what's the background on you? What's your story? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I was born in the worst El Nino ever in 1983. It's kind of where it all started. You know, the world was. I always tell everybody that El Nino was covering me coming down on lightning because that's just how perfect I am. But no, just no. I mean, just a normal Southern California kid, born and raised. Always a bird hunter, and that's really it. Bird hunter, because here in Southern California, your primary hunting that you do, unlike where you are, it's very very hard to get big game. There's guys that I know that have been hunting for 30, 40 years to try to hunt a mule deer in Southern California with little to no success. And so bird hunting is where I kind of cut my roots. Started at 6 years old, dove hunting, quail hunting, chucker hunting. Worked my, kind of that progression in when I hit the 16, 17, where I taught myself how to waterfowl hunt. Because I'm like, dude, dove season is only 1 week, or 2 weeks in the beginning of September and then 1 week in November. There's got to be something else to do. So I got to fill that hunting time. And I had a license, so why not, right? So I taught myself how to waterfowl hunt and became addicted with waterfowl hunting. And I think it's still probably one of my favorite. Taught myself how to turkey hunt. There's tons of turkey feathers all over my whole walls. And just really, that's it. It was birds. And it was every bird that I can hunt in Southern California. Never, ever, ever thought about hunting out of another state. Never thought about pursuing anything differently. It was always just the bird season. And it was a way for me to get out with my dad and family friends and just go out and shoot stuff, right? Shotguns, flies that dies. But fast forward now I'm in the restaurant industry, working my way up through the ranks from, started out as a host all the way up to servers and corporate trainers, developers, managers, new restaurant openers. Never really kind of ever thought of myself as anything else, even though I wanted to get into law enforcement. But I have this little thing called color blindness, and they don't allow you to be a cop if you can't see what color the perp shirt is. Go figure. And so I just kind of went that realm into the world of restaurants. And in about, I got married in 2007. So the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, I realized that I was getting really, really, really sick every time I ate. And someone that works in a restaurant working 10, 13 hours a day in a restaurant, you don't have time to get stomach illness. Now I'm saying stomach illness. Imagine the worst flu of your life for 3 hours a day. Every time after you ate, like 30 minutes after you ate, you were just throwing up or whatever. Use your imagination. And it was bad. It was to the point where it was affecting my marriage. It was affecting my newly married, because we got married in 2007 in June. And so it was affecting it because we weren't going out and hanging out with friends. We weren't doing anything. I was going to work. It was affecting my job because as I was managing, I'm like, dude, I can't just like run off and go take a dump every 5 minutes,
Yep.
And so it got to the point where I just kind of stopped eating, kind of figured out what didn't make me sick. I didn't know what was making me sick, but I realized like eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I was fine. And this is right about the time that all these allergies started emerging, such as gluten allergies. And so the doctor's like, oh, it's gluten. And I'm like, it's not gluten because peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are my jam. Like,
literally.
So I literally, I'd be in the restaurant. I'm like, another peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but there'd be times I'm eating an egg and all of a sudden I get sick on an egg. I'm like, what the frick is going on? Right. So I started doing a lot of research on internal gut, blood types, that kind of stuff. found a book called Deep Nutrition, and it's a book that literally changed my thought process in my life. And through that, started emailing the lady who wrote the book.
Mm.
She's a microbiologist that works on internal gut. She was having a lot of problems growing up and living with joints and muscles and atrophies, and she ended up moving to Hawaii because she was trying to change her climate and her temperature. And so she gets there, and she's still doing her microbiology stuff, and she started researching about the gut, how the gut controls the entire body. What you put into your body is literally the food source which controls your body. She started looking at there was no heart disease prior to the study of the Heart Association of America. There was really no diabetes until processed food. There was she starts going into all these things, looking back at history, going, where was the turning point that a lot of these things started affecting us? And it became when man started processing food, when we started to take food and process it down, even so much as breads and stuff like that. No longer were breads a healthy source of getting your vitamins and minerals and your oats and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, these breads were being processed, and all the good stuff was taken out, and they were replacing it with extra enzymes, which are creating gluten. As they were feeding themselves, and all of a sudden, people's bodies are like, "That's just too much. I can't control it." Right? That's why if you still go to certain places in France and Europe and over there in Paris and stuff like that, gluten free or gluten intolerant people can actually eat pastas and breads over there because they're still doing it the old way of processing and making, which their flour is completely different.
It's really interesting. Being a school
Oh, it's
teacher, I talk about nutrition all the time with my students. And I have a school that I work at is extremely diverse with people from all over countries, from all over the world. And I always get into when we start talking about nutrition and we're diving into the whole concept of enriched. What they have to food companies process stuff down so much so that all you see is the color white, and then
yep,
anything that's not white they add color to it and enrich it with all sorts of stuff. And it's like, originally bread was flour and water and salt, and you rubbed it
that's it.
together and that's it.
Yeah,
And that's how it's
and
found in a lot of places in this world except
and
America.
through that you created natural yeasts. Wow, now you have sourdoughs. Now you have natural yeasts that people are starting to use for fermentation for other processes. And so yeah, as you're saying, it's insane. So through that process of talking to this author and doctor, and we started looking at different aspects of it, and we started looking at there's all these forms of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and a lot of people just think of it as like the one little main one, like, oh, I have IBS, right? Well, there's some extreme BSs. There's some extreme BSs. I like that. Um, there's some extreme syndromes within the gut that a lot of people don't know because they're so rare. And so I started looking at different things, and like I got a list of things to cut out for 30 to 60 days. One of the things in her book she talks about is that your body resets after 30 days, right? So that's why a lot of times they'll tell people, hey, just get past that 30-day mark and exercise. Whole 30. It's a perfect example of what's going out there, right? These people that cut out sugars and cut out carbs and cut out whatever for 30 days. The problem is they lose all the weight and they go, well, now I can go back to drinking my Diet Coke and drinking, and all of a sudden that switch is flipped, right? And so your body has this automatic reset. So she found that out by eating all natural Hawaiian foods with all these different um, tribal doctors and stuff like that. That she was actually getting healthier. She was actually her joints were re-strengthening themselves. Her body was redoing it. She was going on walks. She was swimming. She was just by cutting out processed foods, cutting out the sugars and the trans fats and the oils and the you name it, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, I looked at that list, and the number one, very top thing on there was bovine fat. Now, if you know what a bovine is a cow. And I was like, no, that can't be right. Because born and raised as a Irish kid, beef was a staple because it was cheap,
Right.
right? Every meal in my family there was
Meat and
beef
potatoes.
from ground beef, in the spaghetti meat to make it go farther and to get your protein to my mom would make a 40-pound meatloaf on Sundays, like to feed 7 kids plus all of our friends we had over. And so red meat. Plus, I was working in steakhouses. I was working in high-end restaurants where steak is the staple of everything. It's cooked all over everything, right? And so you start to look at it, and I'm like, all right, well, for 30 days, I'm going to give up this list, right? And so I gave up this list, and I kid you not, had never felt that good my entire life.
Yeah.
Um, Especially have been sick for the past almost 2 years, to this point where I was eating and I was having fun and we were going out and I was just getting things that I knew wouldn't have. Now on that list, there was bovine fats, there were certain oils um, that are processed a certain way with trans fats and there's like 30 things on the list. But the main one that you look at, you're like, oh my gosh, beef, right? And so after 30 days, again, felt incredible. Then I had to go on to the second list. So first thing I did is I went and bought like a 32-ounce ribeye. I was like, actually, I didn't buy it. I got it at the restaurant, right? I'm like, I'm getting this 32-ounce ribeye. I haven't had steak in 30 days. I remember like the third bite in, I was running to the bathroom, puking my guts out, like that quick.
Wow.
Again, your body resets. So I had torn down all the internal bacteria buildup that my body had been using to fight off this enzyme. And now it's like, just get this out of our body, right? And so from that is the last time that really I've put beef knowingly into my face, was the end of, or the beginning of 2009. And so it's one of these aspects where for another year I went only eating birds and pork. And so it was a lot of the birds I was eating, quail, duck, pheasant, turkey. At the restaurants, it was all chicken burgers, right? But there were still times I'd get sick because now the oils started playing into account. One of the newest oils that just started hitting me about a year ago is sunflower seed oil. The problem is that all the companies are taking soybean oil out and replacing it with sunflower seed oil in spices, sauces, all the chips you get at the grocery store right now, sunflower seed oil. And it's actually one of the worst oils for you, but no one knows because it's better than soy, because soy has different hormones for women and estrogen and all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So now they have sunflower seed oil, which has a lower flash point. It's got, the process to make. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But so now I start to look at all these other ingredients and stuff that I started eating and loved that now I can't eat anymore in the past year and a half because of this change in oil. But that moment in time is what led me to where I am today, because that was the catalyst that really threw me into from field to plate. Because at that moment, I realized that I had to do something else to subsidize red meat in my life. I even tried farmed bison, and I was having the same problem because they fall under that bovine, right? Now, it actually is funny. If it is a wild bison, I have no aversion to it at all. When it's domesticated, well, there's an enzyme that develops within the fat as it's domesticated, and the herd mentality gets taken out, and the long story. And so I really started having to understand what I'm going to do. So I was getting ready for archery, or for turkey season at the archery range. And I was talking to this old timer, and he was telling me he was going to Wyoming to hunt antelope. And it was the first time I really thought to myself, like, man, I wish I could hunt out of state. And I told him, it's like, every time I've ever researched, it's so expensive to hunt out of state. And there's no way I can hunt in state because you have to draw for everything, right? And he said it's $38 for a doe tag in Wyoming, license and tag. And I went, I can afford $38. And so I literally put my bow back in its case, drove home, called my buddy Ryan, who's a fireman. I knew he had certain days off. I said, hey, you want to drive to Wyoming and go hunt antelope? Yeah, sure. So we literally jumped in his Honda, like Civic, and we drove to Wyoming with a tent. And we both had rifles that we didn't know how to. He had shot a couple times with his family. I had just bought a 30-06. I threw like a Bushnell scope on it from Walmart. I'm like, all right, let's go kill something, right? Didn't sight it in. I had, again, no idea. I'm thinking it's a shotgun, right? Shotgun with a scope. You have to sight in a scope. No, you just put it on there.
Yeah.
It'll shoot straight. And it was the hardest 7 days of my life. Hiking all over, trying to learn who I am. The very, very last day, ended up shooting antelope. And I remember sitting there in the field with this dead doe. It's not a bird. Birds, this is the only tool I need, is my thumb, right? Just, okay, I'm done. Or even with a turkey, it's literally just pull. You can still stick 2 fingers in and gut this entire thing. And I'm looking at this animal and I'm just intimidated.
Like, what do I do?
And this is before really YouTube was a big thing. This is before, like, I remember typing it in. It was some like redneck in the sticks, like, all right, hook it up and put a golf ball on it and pull it with your truck and it'll skin it off, right? And I'm like, I don't have a truck. I don't have a golf ball. I don't have a house to hang this thing up in. And so I pulled a little Swiss Army pocket knife, not the little one, the big fat one that has like 560 multi-tools, the toothpick, the tweezers,
corkscrew,
the screwdrivers, corkscrew, all that stuff. I pulled that out of my pocket. I got it when I was 13 and never sharpened it, never did anything, right?
Never needed
Yeah.
It's a Swiss Army knife. You don't need
the scissors worked great at cutting fingernails. Like, and I sat in this field with this pocket knife and I'm like, this is the stupidest thing in the world. I don't get it. I don't get why people are so excited to go hunting. It's a pain in the butt to try to hunt them. I don't know what I'm doing. I've got this animal in front of me. We finally gut the thing, take it to a processor. Again, no idea what I'm doing. Processor charges an arm and a leg. It starts snowing that night. So we're packing up our tent in the snow. We're driving to call our wives. We're getting a hotel. We're done. We're done. Every morning we've woken up and it's 20 degrees outside. This is in November, right? We're just done. I remember we sat there and we're eating pizza and look at my buddy. I'm like, this is stupid. You want to come back next year? He's like, maybe. And we sat there. We ordered pizza. We sat there in our underwear watching like Gold Rush or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And we were eating this pizza. We got our meat the next day, drove home, got home. And I remember I was so excited to try my first steak. And I opened up the package, thawed, cooked the steak, take a bite, hated it. Absolutely hated it. I mean, it was like spit it out in my napkin. I'm like, this is disgusting. Like all this work, all this thing for this disgusting piece of meat, right? Now, antelope is now my top 3 meat of all time because I've understood the process of antelope. I guarantee you I didn't even get my antelope back from that processor because he had 175 antelope hanging and he at 7:30 the next morning. I know you boys need to leave. I got your stuff. It's all frozen solid as a rock. There's no way in 5 hours that he processed all those antelope, got to mine, vacuum sealed it, or wrapped it, put it in freezer. There's no way. No way. So I got someone else's who knows how long antelope, but whatever. Mine probably tasted even worse with that Swiss Army gut knife. So joke's on you, whoever I got. But I remember we had a 1.5-year-old daughter, my wife, myself, we both just were like, this is stupid. Like, it's gross. But I had that saying when we grew up, you kill it, you eat it. And so I'm like, I got to figure out how to make this taste. It's good. I got to figure it out. At the time, I know you've probably heard Clint on this show before. Clint and I were buddies. And I was like, I got to try to make this taste good. And so I started researching it, started talking to people in the restaurant, talked to a lot of sommeliers because they're used to pairing wines with different dishes. I'm like, what? It's like I'm sucking on a sage leaf. That's what antelope tastes like. And this antelope, not all antelope, just this antelope. It tastes like I'm sucking on a sage leaf. It's disgusting. What pairs well with this? And so I started doing research and figure out that a lot of Asian cooking, even though you think about it in the terms of sage doesn't go in Asian cooking, but the flavors that pair with it, soys, gingers, garlics, rosemaries, thymes, right? All these other things are comparing to it. I didn't want to dehance the flavor. I wanted to enhance it and make it more palatable. And so I was like, all right, let's make a homemade teriyaki sauce, marinate the meat overnight in little thin skewers, put it on skewer sticks, grilled it, brought it in the table. We all kind of sat there. My wife's like, is this that antelope? I'm like, yeah, but let's just try it. And it was phenomenal. Like, we loved it. My little girl, she asked for it for her 2nd birthday. I made antelope skewers for her at the party. I was like, this is awesome. And I'm like, oh, I can eat red meat, right? And so that went on for the next couple of years. Clint went with me the next year. I took like 5 of my buddies who had never hunted before. I'm like, let's go. They're like, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, I hunted it last year. I know exactly what I'm doing, right? And we got out there and the whole process kind of did it again, all through with ourselves. This time we didn't take it to a butcher. We ended up butchering, I think, 9 antelope in the bathtub of a Days Inn in the middle of Evanston. We're like sneaking antelope in ice chests and hanging them in the shower on the shower curtain. And that's kind of that whole process of where it started, because I started looking around me at all the adults that had no idea what they were doing. Now, I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't want anyone to feel the moment that I felt sitting in the field, so overwhelmed, so just down on myself for not knowing what I was doing and not having anyone there to teach me. Now, my dad taught me how to bird hunt, how to shotgun hunt. I'm stupid when it comes to pulling a shotgun. But flip that over, my dad's never shot a big game animal. Well, he has now because I've taken him out. But at the time, he had never done it. He didn't even have a rifle. He had one shotgun that he got from a Sears catalog.
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 20 gauge, and that's the same. He still shoots that shotgun today. That's the only shotgun he owns,
Is it a
right? I've got
J.C. Higgins?
yeah, he freaking the Wingmaster or something like that. I think is what it is, And then I sit there and now I've got a safe over there that's got 47 different types of shotguns for every type, but my dad still shoots that. That's what my dad did, and so fast forward a couple years later, still doing this thing, still working the restaurant. And I'm talking to a buddy and I was like, I gotta start this company. I go, I gotta start it. And they're like, oh, what would you call it? I go, I don't know, from field to plate. I'm like going from field to plate with food. And they're like, oh, it's funny. So I literally like mocked up a little logo, put it up on a couple of hats and shirts. It's just a straight logo from field to plate, right?
Yep.
I think I still have the hat somewhere. I'll have to find it. And it kind of just started that. And people started seeing the food that I was posting. And I look back at the food I posted 10 years ago and I'm like, why did anyone even ever follow me? Like it's a horrible flip phone picture from a Razor, right? Or a Nokia slide up, whatever it was, right? Taking a picture of it, posting, oh, look at my meal on the same plate out, in my kitchen with no lighting. But that's where it started. It started there and people started asking for recipes. I made a blog, started writing stories about taking my daughter on her first hunt, started just throwing recipes up there. Companies started recognizing it. Mossy Oak reached out to me. Hey, can we share one of your recipes? I'm like, dude, I've been wearing Mossy Oak since I was, 8 years old. Like this is my camouflage. Like this is awesome. And it just kind of kept snowballing, snowballing, snowballing. And then 6 years ago, I was at church playing with high school kids or junior high kids. And I tore my calf muscle, like a class 4 tear in my calf muscle, shot right up into my kneecap. And I sat at home. I was out of work for 6 months. And I sat there for 6 months, not doing anything but cooking and writing recipes, learning, watching, YouTube videos on how to hold, how to take a good picture on your iPhone 4, and started looking at. I went to Hobby Lobby and got core board, and so I could put lights, so I could reflect lights. Because I'm like, oh, I gotta make a better picture, and it came time for me to go back to work. And I remember sitting there going, man, this would be awesome to be able to do this for a living, but no one's going to make money doing this, selling recipes. And I remember I sold like 4 recipes to California Sportsmen for like $25. And I was like, I remember that first $25 paycheck. I still have it. I'm like, $25. Oh my gosh. Like I've made it. I've made it in the world. $25 for a recipe. I'm in a magazine. Like, oh my gosh. And that was what, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And it came time to do it. My wife goes, you've never been happier. You've never been more alive. We have a new 1-year-old daughter at home. Like the whole list goes on. And she's like, just do it. Like, we'll be fine. You're big at budgeting. You got to trust in God. If you want to quit, quit. Like no one's we'll make it work. And if it doesn't work, you've been in the restaurant business since you were 16 years old. You can go get a restaurant job tomorrow if you wanted to, right? So I walked into my work and I quit, like on the spot. I'm like, hey, I know I've been gone for 6 months, but I quit. And they're like, what? Trying to throw more money at me, trying to get me to stay. I was like, no, I'm done. And I walked out the doors. The restaurant's not even there. It got torn down during COVID. But it was this moment where it was this make it or break it type moment where it was a sink or swim. And that Sunday at our church, we had our pastor was speaking, and he was speaking about in life, everyone always tells you to dive into it, right? So how many times have you heard that? Like, just dive into it, man. Just 2 feet in, dive into that pool. And he said, in life, we're always told to dive into it. But in all reality, a dive does nothing but impact you. When you dive into a pool, your goal is to make no splash. Your goal is to do it perfectly, jump in, and in your mind, like, that was the perfect dive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there was that one person on the side of the pool who's like, well, that was a really good dive. He goes, instead, you need to cannonball into life. You need to jump off the high dive, grab your knees, and cannonball. Because when you cannonball, it affects everybody outside the pool and everybody in the pool. The ripple from your cannonball hits the end and comes back and hits you. That's how powerful it can be. And everyone that's outside the pool is going to feel the effects of that splash. He goes, but if you don't cannonball properly, you're going to do a back flop, a belly flop. You're not going to do it. He's like, so when you jump off, you need to grab your knees. You need to go. And I remember at that moment, I said, okay, I got a cannonball. I got to just do this. I can't look back. I don't want to dive in. I need to jump off. And so I jumped in. I said, I have to make an impact and I have to make a splash to every person that I meet in the future. Every person that I talk to, I have to impact it. how can From Field to Plate, this little company that I started, impact people that are in a different country, that are in a different that are in different areas of life. And for me, that became to From Field to Plate is a teaching organism. It is there for people not to struggle like I struggled. It's not to make me famous, it's not to do anything else, but to create amazing recipes, help people go like through their processes and be there to answer questions that I had to struggle through. And if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the answer. I'm gonna ask every person that I know to find the correct answer for that. And I'm gonna learn how to do it. I want to learn how to Euro mount. And so I learned how to Euro mount. Just look behind me. I wanted to learn how to, right. So this became this thing. And through that, I've started for field to plate classes where I take new hunters out, and teach them every aspect of how to hold a gun, to how to butcher down an animal, how to gut it, how to skin it, how to do everything that goes along with it. And I've taken 390 hunters out in the past 4 years for their adult hunters, not you, just adult hunters between the ages of 20 and I think the oldest guy we had out there was 78 years old. Moms of kids who don't have a dad, who their sons want to learn how to hunt. She saw my class online in a magazine. She comes out, doesn't own a piece of camouflage, doesn't own a gun, comes out there and goes through the whole process so she can go home and teach her 17-year-old kid how to hunt. All because I'm allergic to beef. All because
All
food was
because
the
and all because you actually had the courage to endeavor and chase something that you enjoyed.
yeah, but I mean, like I think you and I were talking earlier, where every moment has a reaction, positive or negative,
Yeah.
and it all depends on how we view it. If we want to go into life saying, "Crap, I can't eat beef," like woe is me, oh the world sucks, oh this, oh that. People tell me now all the time, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you can't eat beef." And I was like, "No, but I eat elk, zebra, antelope, caribou, moose, whitetail, blacktail." I list this thing. They're like, "What?" I go, "But you go eat a cow. Good for you." Right? Like, turn it around. This other thing, it's like you eat a cow, and I'm eating the world around me. We had a party the other day, and I brought zebra meat because we shot a zebra in Texas. And I brought zebra meat, and all my mom's friends are eating this. They're like, "Oh, this is amazing. What is this?" I go, "It's a zebra." And they were like, "That's awesome, right?" There was no negative. There was no, "This is what zebra tastes like. This is what horse tastes like. Can we eat horse?" I know that. And this became this whole thing where it became me talking about the process of the hunt, the story behind it. And I think food, for me, it's a trigger. It's a trigger to get people into the hunting industry. It's a trigger to get people out of the hunting industry because people look at it going, "Well, you don't respect it. You're not doing it. You're not eating. You're not blah, blah, blah. That's it. I'm done." Right. For me, I get 100 death threats a week on average,
Mhm.
give or take. I've actually taken people who have given me death threats who were vegetarians and vegans out on their first hunts. They are no longer vegetarians and vegans because I sat there and treated them with respect. I was like, "It's fine, whatever. Come if you want to come kill me, come kill me. But then you're gonna be worse than I am because now that's just a deer. Like, let's look through the whole process. And this is what I do. This is how I go about it. Every single aspect of that animal is used and respected. And I don't know, it's just this snowball effect that comes into it. So that's kind of my story, I guess, in
It-
a 40-minute nutshell.
it's a beautiful story, by the way. And just to reiterate what you just said, and what I always share on this podcast is life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you.
Right.
And we are not a result of the circumstances in our lives. We get to create each moment and each day in the existence that we want it to. And so, yeah, there's times where we don't get what everyone else gets or we don't have opportunities like everyone else has. We also get to create whatever opportunity we want to, and there's so much beauty in that. I talk
Oh yeah.
I talk on this podcast a lot about, we're made in the image of God, right? If God is the creator and we're made in his image, then we are like mini creators. And if we are not taking the time to identify in our own souls and our own hearts and lives what fuels our fire, then we're not fueling the creativity that is naturally within us. And so when we get in positions where we can fuel that fire and we can allow that natural progression of the things that we love and have passion for and purpose to flow, it enhances not only our lives but all the lives that we then come encounter with day to day because we are living the life that we want to live rather than living this existence that is so mundane and 9 to 5 and just it's I never like to use the word grind. And life is not a grind. For me, I'm like, dude, life is so awesome. There's hard moments, there are bad moments, there are crappy moments, but I'm not grinding through. I'm not like constantly resisting everything. I was like, dude, take it with open arms, baby. Let's go. And with that being said, not everyone agrees with that. And it's a real interesting perspective just where it comes with people who are anti-hunting versus pro-hunting.
Yeah, and I think well, see, there's a deal between we I had this really big discussion with a buddy of mine. There's a big difference between anti-hunters and non-hunters.
Yeah.
Huge, huge, huge. And people will categorize people who are non-hunters as anti-hunters. Anti-hunters are deliberately attacking us for what we're doing and not knowing what we're doing. Where non-hunters are just uneducated about what we do because all they see in mainstream media is fill in the blank, right? All they see is Cecil the lion. All they see is Kendall Jones with a giraffe. All they see is Cameron Haynes, or all they see is the Bomars making news again. All they see is the negatives, even though there's amazing stories behind every single one of those people. That maybe there was something that got taken out of context. Maybe they did make a mistake. And you look at all these different aspects of who we are as people, and we have that choice to either embrace it or kind of put it away. And for me personally, I tell everyone all the time, I am who I am. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I really don't care, because again, I'm not here to please you. I'm here to, again, as you and I both know, I'm here to be an example. I'm here to share my faith. I'm here to do it in a different way. And for me, that's all on a plate of food. I can tell the entire story about my hunt on a plate of food. And if you don't eat, you die, right? That's just plain and simple. So every time we sit down and to eat, there's a memory associated with that food. Be it something you killed yourself, or be it your grandma's cinnamon roll, right? You're walking through the airport, you smell cinnamon rolls. All of a sudden, your mind flashes back to your grandma coming out with a pan of cinnamon rolls. It's not your grandma's cinnamon roll. It's not any of this. But as hunters, we're blessed because now we're driving down the street and we see an elk. And all of a sudden, all these memories of our elk hunt come. And now my kids are like, Dad, tell me about that elk hunt, right? Like I have Euro mounts on my wall behind me because of the fact that each one's a story and each one has a different. I can tell you where everyone was shot, why they were shot, who they were shot with, what meals I created with each one of these animals, because I respect that animal and I love that animal, and I believe that God saved that animal for that exact moment for me. I mean, He allowed that animal to live for 7 years for me to come by and feed my family. Right? It's a parable within itself where He says, "Ask and it'll be given to you." Like, I'm asking for nourishment, I'm asking for food, and instead, I think a lot of people get so caught up in this fast food nation where it's like, "God, God, God, I'm so hungry, feed me." And then I go to the grocery store and I spend all my money to buy processed food to come back and feed me. When God, in all reality, could be telling them like, "Hey, blank, blank, and blank." Right? I can't tell you how many people I've been able to share the word. There was We'll kind of get off topic, I guess, a little bit, but I was on a turkey hunt with a company, and they were filming this turkey hunt for their promotional thing. And so I'm sitting in the blind. It's me and two camera guys, right?
Hmm.
And we're calling on these turkeys. These turkeys come. This turkey walks in. I'm looking. They're like, okay, the camera guy behind me. Okay, get ready, take the shot whenever you're ready. I got on camera. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like just ignoring him. And I'm kind of looking, wait. Finally, I shoot the turkey. It drops. I take off my hat, and after every animal I kill, I bless it. I say a prayer. I usually cry because I'm a freaking crybaby. That's just what happens. I don't like killing animals. I've said it before. There's footage of me saying it. I don't enjoy killing animals, but for me, I'd rather kill an animal and feed my family than have someone else do it for me and take that out of the equation. Um, and so I pray over this animal in this blind, and the one camera guy gets up and goes, "Okay, I'm gonna go over, and you can walk towards me. We'll get the footage." And then the other camera guy goes, "Hey, I'm really glad you prayed over the animal." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks, man. Like, really appreciate it." He goes, "And here's why." He goes, "I've been struggling with my faith for the past year." He goes, "I follow you on social media. I follow a lot of people." He's like, "And I film a lot of people,
Mm.
and most people that I follow are not who they are." They're one way for the camera, and behind the scenes, they're completely different. He goes, and I literally told my wife, if this guy who I look up to as a Christian, as a father, as a hunter, as a chef, isn't who he says it is, I'm done. I'm done with church. I'm done with God. I'm done with this marriage. I'm not going to be in this. Him and I ended up sitting in this blind and talking for 2.5 hours. The other camera guy just left. It's like, well, let's leave the bird there. We'll come back into it. And we just talked and shared because of that moment that we shared in the blind, right? And he's he's just had another baby. They're doing so well in their marriage. He's, you know, doing different things at his church now that it's reopened. And I thought to myself, if I would have just got caught up in the moment and walked out of the blind
Yeah.
and wasn't true to who I was, how would that have affected him? How would that have affected his marriage? And how would that have affected his children from that moment that I chose to be someone who I wasn't supposed to be? And from then on, I was like, I am who I am. Like, I'll be in huge groups. I'm like, I'm going to pray for dinner. If you don't like it, I don't care, but take your hat off and I'm going to pray. And these guys who are like anti-Christians are like taking their hats off, like looking around, like, if I don't do this, I'm going to get in trouble. Some of the posts I put out there, they're very controversial posts, like posting pictures of dead piglets that we're going to eat, but doing it in a way that it's educational and respectful. You can never have anybody come back at you, because as soon as they come back at you, they're the ones that look like trash. They're the ones that look negative. If there's that one guy that's like, F you, I don't want to pray. What's every 50 people in that room going to look at that guy? Right? They're not going to be like, oh, I respect you, dude. You're right. Let's not. Right? Same thing applies to social media. Same thing applies to families. Same thing applies to everything. I'm not about the money. I'm not about the fame. I'm about telling stories
Hmm.
and sitting around campfires and getting to know somebody. And if it helps a mom from Louisiana take her two boys out hunting, then I'll give up my Saturday and go take her out.
Yeah. It's powerful. It's a powerful story to be authentic, to live true to yourself, and to live true to yourself with the intent to share what you've learned and gathered. And it's so powerful. I love it, Jeremiah. There's a reason why a few years ago I reached out to you when I started to dive down the world of social media when it came to hunting, and I came across your profile and I was like, hey, this is the type of guy I could get behind. So it's really nice to go full circle and have you on for a podcast and hear your story and hear you talk about how passionate it is. I just want to switch gears here a little bit and talk a little bit about something that we were recording or talking about off air, and that is there's a tick, a Lone Star tick,
Yep.
that if you are bit by the Lone Star tick, you end up being allergic to red meat. Now, this is something that is how you've researched it quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
How long has this Lone Star tick been around?
Uh, about 5 or 6 years is the first cases of people coming out to do it. One of my good friends, Will, actually has it. He's a huge hunter, um, and so much so that he still shoots his deer and just donates it now. But yeah, it's alpha Gala disease is what it's called, and it's a way that your body is attacking the red meat proteins. Now that's a red meat protein, not beef, not that's elk, venison, moose, anything that's a red. Even there's some aspects of geese and ducks because of their red meat, and their proteins. You look at a goose breast sliced up, it looks just like a venison steak sliced up, right? And so this you're actually allergic to the protein found within red meat. So it's not pretty.
That's so crazy. I don't mean to well, I do mean to. So let me take that back. I do mean to talk about this, but it feels like such a weird shift of gears going from your story talking about how passionate and powerful it is to all of a sudden what I follow the news, but not mainstream news all the way. I like to pick up my sources.
Babylon Bee.
Dude,
Babylon Bee is what
Babylon Bee is solid. that
the
is
onion.
that is a fun one to. If you guys have never heard of the Babylon Bee, go check it out. It might make you chuckle a little bit. But one of the things I recently came across, and it was a Twitter post of a blue checkmark Twitter account. I don't know who the person is, but they have enough followers that they are who Twitter says they are. And it was talking about how there's a lot of, and this is getting going conspiracy theory, all you listeners out there, if you've never heard about any of this stuff, look it up for yourself. I'm not, I may be an educator and a school teacher, but at the end of the day, everything, people have free will. You can go look at things on your own. There's a lot of talk about like HIV has a patent, cancers have patents, different stuff like that. Lyme's disease have patents. There's all this talk. Well, there's something that I saw on Twitter that popped up that said that this disease that is caused through tick bites is man-made to then cause you to be allergic to red meat. And I was thinking to myself, it's like, wow, that's horrible. And at the same time, I was like, well, that would make sense though that Bill Gates is buying up all this ranch land and he's a big stockholder and shareholder in Beyond Meat, and they want everyone to eat lab-grown meat, and the list goes on. It's just like there's so much out there that the world can put so much negative energy and effort into scaring people, but then us as hunters, when we go and do what we love, it feels like nothing else really matters, and it is
Right.
super calming. It's like it's at the end of the day, if I'm doing what I need to do and my family is doing what they need to do, it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to. And so easy to get caught up in mainstream media and news outlets. But at the end of the day, man, people got to live their life, and they need to step out of fear-based thinking to live their life. Whether you are brand new to hunting, never experienced it, not even hunting, maybe it's just like a different. Maybe you want to go to a different restaurant because you're like, I've never tried that, but I've always thought about it or always heard it was good. It's time to break out, and I feel like what you do with From Field to Plate really challenges people in that aspect as far as how they view the world.
Yeah, and I think that conspiracy theory, you nail it on the head with that aspect of where I think people are very, very much controlled by the environment now. Not the environment outdoors, but because everyone's been brought in indoors and everyone it can experience it. So, here in California, some of the people that work on our Department of Fish and Game have never fished and never hunted.
Mm.
And they're the ones making all the rules for our fish and wildlife. How can you have someone that's in charge of fish and wildlife who you look and he actually has done stuff with PETA in the past?
Yeah, same thing in the state of
And
Washington as well. There's no
so
requirement to even take hunter safety to work in the hunting department.
there's this new federal thing coming out called R3. I don't know if you've heard about it. Reform, recruit and retain.
Yep.
Retain and reform, right? And so there's these. It's called the R3 movement.
Recruit, retain, and reactivate.
Reactivate.
Yep.
And here in California, we're actually taking out a couple of the fish and wildlife people. There's one girl who's she's a biologist trying to help bring antelope back into Southern California, back in like the deserts between Mexico and California where they used to be the Sonoran pronghorns, right? And talking with her, she's never hunted before. We're gonna try to take her turkey hunting this year as her first hunt because she wants to know more about it. And all she hears is the negative aspects. But with us, they got rid of bobcat hunting. They tried to get rid of our bear hunting. And it's all this is being funded and being supported by people who don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
They know nothing about it. They know. And so when you talk about this alpha Gala disease, you talk about Lyme disease, you talk about all these other things, nobody knows and nobody cares about it except for hunters, right? And then we become these crazy conspiracy theorists because we're like, hey, why has Lyme disease only been around for this long? Why is there no vaccination for it, but my dog can get vaccinated for it? Literally, my dog goes in once a year and gets vaccinated for Lyme disease because he's a hunting dog. And they give my dog the shot so my dog won't get Lyme disease.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've got 3 nieces who have Lyme disease and they can't do anything about it. Okay,
What's going
why?
on?
Well, what's going on? Well, now I just read in the news actually last week. They're actually talking about there's this new vaccination for Lyme to prevent Lyme and stuff like that. But they've been having it for our dogs for 10 years. But humans don't matter, or well, because it's just different. I don't get it. I don't get how they can give it to a dog and it keeps the dog, but they can't give it to human to keep a human.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to get into all that stuff, but
That's a
I
whole
look at
nother
it for
podcast that
oh, it's a whole
we
other
totally
podcast.
have to record.
Yeah, but I look at it, like I said, I look at it for the fact that like God put me in a place right now for me to be an example, for me to be an answer. I get questions after questions after questions nonstop on all my social medias, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter to even Pinterest. I have so many female moms and females following me on Pinterest because their husbands bring home a deer, drop it on the counter, say, cook up dinner. And they're like, I don't know how to cook this freaking deer. Right. And so on Pinterest, and you look at some of these other wild game chefs out there, and everyone's into this locavore movement. Everyone's into becoming a wild game chef. There's girls, there's guys, everyone's doing it, right? And people ask me all the time, like, well, do you feel threatened by that? I'm like, heck no, man. I could care less. How many bear hunters are there?
Hmm.
How many waterfowl guys are there?
Yeah.
Right? I could care less. If people are getting introduced to wild game and how to cook a meal because Danielle does it, why is that offensive to me? If she takes my job, she takes my job. That's just the way that nature works. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to pursue who I'm going to do. Think about it. And I told, I got Outdoor Life magazine, reached out and was doing this kind of interviewing a couple of people about wild game. And they asked me like this question, like, well, I know that you were the first one to really do the tomahawk cuts on steaks, like taking the backstrap, doing the bone-in loins. You were the first person on social media to really put that out there. And now everyone and their mom, you see pictures of bone-in ribs and tomahawks, right? You see them everywhere. She goes, do you feel like upset about that? That like they've all taken what you did and made it like mainstream? I went, that's the dumbest question anyone could ever ask me. The reason I put out what I put out is so that I can be copycatted.
Mm-hmm.
Is so I can have people go, I want to make that dish. I want to share that with my family. I want to do that. Who in their right mind be like, oh my gosh, that was mine.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I go, and think about it this way, lady. This is how I said to her, lady. She was getting on my nerves because she wasn't a hunter. She was just writing for the magazine. And I go, there's a million amusement parks, right? You can go to any state. I mean, Washington, you probably got 4 or 5 amusement parks in Washington, right? Some random little mom and pop amusement park. Yes or no? Right?
Yeah, maybe like 2, but still, yeah.
Like Wally's Sasquatch's Adventure of Bigfoot and Tiny Tim or something like, I don't know. Babe the Blue Ox or whatever you guys have up there. And but you can go there and you can enjoy it and you can have fun. But there's only one Disneyland. There's only one Disney World, which is a destination, which is somewhere that people save up money to go to. So I don't care. There's a million other theme parks. I want to be Disneyland. I want to be Disney World. I want to be the one that people go to and say, "Hey, I saw this on so and so's page. It really wasn't working. How do I make it better? How do I fix it?" I go, "So be a million amusement parks. I don't care." I go, "I want to be the amusement park that people go to as an authority on it, and not an authority of like high dining, pheasant under glass, black truffle oils, and no, that's not who I am. I want people to go, hey, I want to make a chili a little bit different. How do I do it? Hey, there's a thread right now going on my Instagram or on my Facebook from Field to Plate group that I started, which is kind of a community that just lets people talk about from field to plate stuff. And there's a thread in there. This lady cooked a hind leg of a button buck. First of all, the best thing in the world is not one person made fun of her for saying button buck and shooting a button buck, which I think is awesome because I would have deleted them from the group. And but it was dry and so people are going through it, and it really allowed everyone to kind of be honest, like, hey, this is why it does, this is what it does. And this lady at the very end, she actually texted me this afternoon, was like, I have never felt so much love in a group and encouraged to continue to try and make that food taste better.
Beautiful.
You go to all these other groups and it's like negative, 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 negative. I mean, I'm in so many of these hunting forums and they're like, oh my gosh, your kid shot that. That's such a baby. Right. And here, and I tell people all the time, I said, we're here to be mentors and friends. There's no making fun of people. There's no, I will just boot you. I could care less. I don't,
Dude,
you mean nothing to me.
it's so funny. I was just recently on the cover of Bear Hunting magazine for March and April. And I didn't shoot a monster bear. I also didn't shoot a cub. I shot a good bear. And Clay Newcomb from Bear Hunting magazine posts something on social media with the cover of the magazine, and I don't know why I did this. Maybe because I wanted to leave a comment on Clay's social and say, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to write for your magazine, yada, yada. And I started reading some of the comments, and the guy's like, yeah, big smile, but tiny bear. Like, what is that? Shooting a bear cub? And I'm like, dude, people are just a bunch of haters.
Oh yeah,
Haters. And,
hate them.
you know, at the end of the day, this is where being a hunter has only challenged me and in my steadfastness for being able to defend who I am and not defend, because I don't like to have to always be on the defensive. That's like a hunting term that we have to defend hunting. I feel like we just need to show up with who we are, and it grounds ourselves more in the ability to just share who we are with the world.
The only people I've ever blocked on social media are hunters.
Right.
I've never blocked a vegan. I've never blocked a vegetarian. I've never blocked an anti-hunter. I've never blocked a death threader. Never. But I have blocked so many hunters who are negative and disrespectful and disgusting. And
It's
that's just, and I can't. And it for me, it's one of those moments where I just don't need you in my life, and I don't need you surrounded. And there are people that I was close friends with in the hunting industry,
yeah.
and the way they treated other hunters, I brought it up to them. They're like, "Well, dude, just get over it." And I'm like, "You're done." Like, and I just delete their phone number. I'm like, there's no reason for that to be in my life. And I get made fun, like I said, I get made fun of a lot for these guys. And these guys, I'll just block them all, block their wives, because the wives will come in and start saying stuff. Like, boop. I I don't care. Like, I really don't, because like you said, there's such a negative aspect that goes around what we do. And I think we are our own worst enemies. As hunters, we're fighting over rifle
Mhm.
versus bow. Now, compound versus recurve, scoped versus open sights, muzzle loader versus inline. Like, you look at all these different things, camouflage versus non-camouflage, Sitka versus Kuiu. It's like, oh
Right.
my gosh, Can-Am versus, I don't care. Like, it drives me insane. Now I have sponsors, I love Vortex. That's what I've loved it before they were a sponsor.
Mhm.
But I'm not gonna. I've been on the hunts. I'm not gonna look at someone and go, "Pff, Maven, really? You're shooting whatever. Watch you miss, right? I'm not ever gonna do that.
Yeah. Well,
It's
it goes perfectly with a house divided cannot stand, right? If we're constantly tearing each other down, then our activity, because I don't like calling it a sport. I don't know why. I feel like it's more of a lifestyle than anything, so I can't call it a pastime. Maybe, um,
gosh. All
but
right, hipster.
dude,
Life. It's not a diet.
well,
It's a lifestyle change. No, I'm kidding. I just want to be a dick.
no, well, okay, very good. See, I'm very bad at picking up on sarcasm. So all you listeners out there, if you're ever sarcastic with me, I take what people say and I'm like, oh,
Oh, no, I'm just
he's
sorry.
serious.
I'm just a jerk.
I will say this, and this is going back to creating meals. I feel like I was you. I didn't know how to cook any animals that I started killing, and I was like, okay, well, ground meat is taco seasoning because tacos are tacos, and you really can't go wrong. Maybe spaghetti, and then if it was a steak, I was in a
Montreal steak seasoning.
Montreal steak seasoning and butter, and that was all I need. And I really, to this day, I actually love that. But I'm branching out more, and it turns out the way I like my steaks, Jeremiah, you're probably gonna just hate on me for this. My my
Probably.
my hunting partner Tony, he just like, come on. I think I'm a bear hunter. I know I'm a bear hunter, and the reason why I know I'm a bear hunter is because I like to cook my meat well done. And I was
Oh,
like, "Oh, this is perfect." The best wild game meal I ever made was bear teriyaki. A marinated bear, cut it up in
we actually
thin.
pronounce it berryaki.
Oh, teriyaki, very good.
That's what we say at bear camp whenever I make it. Oh, here's some berryaki.
Yeah, it's incredible. But I was like, "Oh, dude, I gotta expand my horizons on how I cook this stuff because it's phenomenal." I've just never really been one for cooking, and then at the same time, like the story you shared earlier is I don't really find my wife coming up with like different wild game recipes. I feel like if I killed it, it's also my responsibility to cook it and do that. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. It's its whole own journey that we get to go down when every hunter is ready.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part. What I found is most of my recipes that I create are dishes that I've had to substitute. Meat is meat.
Hmm.
Be it red meat, be it white meat, be it pink meat. Meat is meat. How you treat it may differ a little bit, but meat is meat. People go, "Oh my gosh, what do I do with this deer?" I'm like, "Well, hey, what are your favorite beef recipes?" "Oh, this, and this." "Great. So what should I do with my deer?" This. They're like, "But those are my favorite recipes."
Doesn't change.
Nailed it.
Yep.
Doesn't change. Well, yeah, but it's deer meat. So, like tonight, I made you ever have like chicken tetrazzini, right? You probably don't know what that is.
No.
It's delicious. But I had a wild turkey breast that I smoked and I had extra, so I was like, "Well, I'm gonna throw that in there." And it was freaking amazing. Right before you and I got on here, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I'm gonna take it." I actually have to go upstairs, take a pretty picture of it so I can post it tomorrow. Um, but yeah, you look at all these different things, and I've been on pheasant hunts with families, and the dad's like, "Oh, we don't eat pheasant. We'll give it to somebody else." So I asked the kids, I'm like, "What's your favorite pheasant dish?" They're like, "Orange chicken from Panda Express." Really? All right, cool. So then I go home and write a recipe that resembles Panda Express as close I can because I'm not going to use bull crap put into a recipe. It's going to be natural ingredients,
Uh-huh.
right? Send it over. The family cooks it. And the dad's like, "Oh my gosh, this is insane. The kids are going crazy. I'm so sorry." I build stuff off of what you want. Like I'm writing a cookbook right now. It's not going to be the wild game cookbook that everyone wants from me. I guarantee you it. Everyone's expecting me to come up with this wild game cookbook that they're like, "Oh, it's good." It's there's going to be 50 recipes in it. And the 50 recipes are based around the 50 states in the United States of America. Every state, I'm doing its signature dish with wild game flair on it. I have 20 recipes left, and the entire book will be done of taking gorgeous pictures. But it's like if you go to Kentucky, there's a staple dish, and there's two staple dishes in Kentucky. I'm going to utilize wild game to create that dish, and all the people in Kentucky have gone berserk. Hey, this is a like. Have you ever been to South Dakota and had chislic? Do you know what chislic is?
Been to South Dakota, never had chislic. I'm not sure what it
You
is.
know what it is?
No.
Okay, so chislic. I posted chislic, and people went in South Dakota went absolutely berserk. Oh my gosh, no one ever talks about our cuisine. No one ever talks about our food. It's literally kebabs that are like fried in a cast iron, crispy hard, but like raw still in the middle, with like saltine crackers and hot sauce. I'm not joking you. This is their favorite dish in South Dakota. Like you can look it up. And you're like, what the? Just type in chislic, and you're like, this is stupid.
What'd you come up
But
for the state of Washington?
you'll see.
You'll
Uh, let's just say it involves coffee,
Oh.
salmon, and a beautiful citrus salad.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And so again, but there's recipes that if you look at like Virginia, right? Virginia really doesn't have too many signature meat dishes, but they've got a lot of bears,
Mhm.
right? And so what I'm doing is I've got a couple jars of bear fat. So I'm going to make one of their signature dishes is um, apple cinnamon donuts. So I'm going to make apple cinnamon donuts using bear fat, right? It doesn't have to be meat. It can be utilized with the animal from that area, right? So you look at these things, people are like, "Oh my gosh, apple cinnamon donuts, those are our favorite." Oh, look, you use bear fat. I can use bear fat. I can use goose fat. I can use pig fat. Fat is fat, just like meat is meat, right? So it's not even the cookbook people want, but I don't care. It's the cookbook I want to make because it talks about culture. It talks about society. It talks about life. I'm going through stories about where that food originated from and why it is. Because to me, food is a memory, like I told you. And if I can hit that memory for every single state and someone goes, "Oh my gosh, that reminds me of," or this, because like the North or all of us on the West Coast, we really don't have signature dishes. We
Mhm.
don't. We don't have. We haven't been around that long. We don't have things that we really don't have the immigration from the Germans, from the Scots, from the Nordic, from we were all the hillbillies that wanted to make gold
Mhm.
and get gold. So they're like, "Yeah, well, we just fried chicken, right? Like that's all we do, or we just have seafood." And so it was a lot harder to do California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, like everything you type in, try to research, it's like buffets. That's not a signature food dish.
You
But
can't
anyway,
wait, you can't make a wild game buffet?
I can, but it's again what I take pictures of. People don't know this. What I take pictures of is the meal my family eats for dinner. I don't do it any other time. I don't do it during the day when my family's at work or school. That's dinner. That burger that you see that's like 4 times too high, I cut that sucker in 4 things, and that goes on every plate, and we're eating with forks and knives, laughing, having a good time. That picture is dinner. That food that you see is what we eat that night. And so it's not like some of these other people that have a professional photographer come in and like one of the buddies like, why is it taking you so long to do the cookbook? Well, you did a cookbook, but you had 2 weeks where you had professional guys in a professional kitchen and you knocked out 75 recipes in 2 weeks because all you're doing is making a plate and they sitting to them there taking pictures, making other plates. This is what my family's eating for dinner. Like that's the difference is I could go to a restaurant. I have many restaurants that I know. I can knock out 50 recipes, have it all look beautiful and take beautiful. But I think the story behind my family ate every single one of these dishes for dinner is way more impactful and powerful than just like, hey, here's a cookbook, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Right. Oh man, I can't wait to see. When do you expect it? What is your goal date to release by?
My goal is to have it up so people can buy it for Christmas.
Perfect.
I think I'm gonna do I'll do it a little different. I'm gonna do 50 cookbooks up front. Um, and they're all gonna be hardcovered, numbered, lettered, autographed. And then those are gonna subsidize putting it out for everybody else in the soft cover, and stuff like that. But I think having 50 for the 50 states right up right up front and kind of just be like, hey, here it is, first come, first serve, and see how that goes. A lot of people tell me that's dumb. I need to do a bigger production. But I think again, having something nowhere in life anymore are there first editions. Nowhere in life are we taking the time to create something special for somebody.
Hmm.
Everything's mass produced. Everything is out there. This is all going to be. I mean, I'm self publishing this. I may do a Kickstarter for it, where people can buy a book as well as spend money to subsidize it to get a hunt with me or to get some gear from sponsors and that kind of stuff. Or I'm just going to put it up and keep it at a flat price. Be like, hey, 50 for 50, $50. Here it is. And really, like I said, I think it's a lot specialer for someone to have a number. You know, there's a lot of people who are texting me, I want number 13. Save me number 13. If I don't get number 13, I'll be pissed. I'm like, I'm not going to save anything. Like I'm literally just going to be like, go. And the order you bought it is is the number you get. Um, so I don't know. I'm
That's
excited
cool.
for
I
it.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Where can people find your content who have never heard of Jeremiah Doughty and From Field to Plate?
Nailed it. You know, it took the whole show, but you got it.
Thank you. I've been holding
Yeah.
on to that for the entire time.
Yeah. Well, if you don't want to follow me on social media, which is From Field to Plate, it's pretty easy. That's Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. Um, Twitter is From Field the number 2 plate because apparently I have one too many characters for that. So From Field to Plate. I don't do much on Twitter anymore since they went crazy.
I had 2
Um,
Twitter accounts taken down this year.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
get silenced. I get silenced a lot, and I get my pictures deleted, and all it is food. And they're like, "Nope, you're anti. You're anti everything."
yep.
But yeah, Instagram, I'm there. You can comment. I've got a group on Facebook, From Field to Plate group. I got a page on Facebook, From Field to Plate, that you can follow both those. The group is what you and I were talking about. We have a mentorship program on there, so you can click on there if you want to be a mentor, or if you want someone, or if you need mentorship. You can register on there. It's completely free, and you can say, "Hey, I'm really good at fishing or bear hunting or whatever," and someone that needs advice on bear hunting, you can actually be a one-on-one mentor with that person. Something that no other hunting groups out there doing. I guarantee you, I've looked at all of them. And so it's kind of a cool thing. I think there's like 30 mentors on there right now.
Is that set
Out
up
of
within the Facebook group? Like, is that a
it is,
Facebook feature?
it is,
Because I've looked at setting that up for myself in my groups that I've,
it is absolutely amazing.
yeah, one positive
Um,
feature of Facebook.
yeah, and it's awesome because people put in there, and you know, there's girls in there who are like, I'm really good at this, and they've written me, and they've matched up with 3 or 4 different ones. One of my friends who is a non-hunter, she doesn't hunt. She lives in Utah. Her husband is a hunter, not a big hunter. He's a duck hunter, but they have friends who shoot moose and elk and stuff, and give them like half the animal. And her and I became friends because she was looking for recipes. She runs an amazing company out of Utah, where she sells like cool plates with kids' pictures on them and stuff like that. Anyway, um, she actually follows those groups. She asked a question about what someone posted, and her and this girl hooked up from Canada, and they've been talking, becoming friends, asking about wild game because they're both cooking wild game. They don't hunt it, and so she kind of found a connection in the hunting world, and she's not a hunter. And she had this mentorship where she's like, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing." This girl's like, "Dude, I've been doing it for years. This is how you cook moose." right? And so I think it's kind of, to me, that was a really cool aspect. So from Field to Plate, the group, if you have a question on being a mentor or mentorship, just click it and find somebody on there. And everyone on there is awesome. Again, there's no negative comments. If there's a negative comment, you'll be warned and then you'll be deleted. We don't need that in our life. If you post a picture of a button buck and someone makes fun of you for it, they're gone. No questions asked. And then otherwise, you can follow me if you're through tons of magazines. I write for NWTF, National Wild Turkey Federation, write for Mossy Oak, Vortex Optics. You can see videos and stuff up there. I just signed on for doing Nomad recipes for Nomad. So you can see it all over the place. Wiley X, all these other places, you'll be able to find recipes, which I think is kind of cool because it's companies who are not known for hunting who are reaching out asking for wild game recipes to try to bring the hunters and the tactical guys into the same world. So if you have a question about wild game, just ask. That's how Johnny started. He's like, hey, how do I do this? Or I think you were starting a book or something, or what were you starting? A book, right?
Well, I was starting just my platform.
But it was something. Yeah,
I wrote a book. I have not released it. I'm holding on to it because my story is still being developed, and there's a lot to add and change and edit and update. But yeah, also my big platform is mentorship is conservation, and so if we want hunting to last, we got to invest in other people's lives. And so I wanted to talk to Jeremiah about mentorship and what you do down at your Texas classes and all that. So, dude, great insight, great information. If someone wants to sign up for one of your classes in Texas, where do they go?
Yeah, we are almost. We usually release the class dates in May for the future, and that'll be on fromfieldtoplate.com. I'll post about it all over on social media. You'll see it. This year we sold out in 30 minutes. We sold 14 spots in 30 minutes.
Wow.
So
cool.
I have a ton of different outfitters who want me to do it this year. We're looking at doing a waterfowl one in California. We're looking at doing a hog one in California because people that don't want to travel. I just got called from the Alberta group in Alberta who's working with the travel agency in Alberta who wants to do a Canadian from Field to Plate class in Alberta through their travel to get people into Alberta, Canada. We're doing some in Texas again. I've been reached out by Virginia. So there's a ton of different states. Hopefully next year, if COVID calms down, they'll be everywhere. But yeah, from fieldtoplate.com. There's not much on the website right now in terms of what I've added because I'm working on a whole brand new website right now. So there's still tons of recipes, tons of content on there. The new website should be up in the next couple of months. But we're rebuilding it from the ground up, making a very interactive website where you can just type in deer and it'll pull up all the deer recipes that you need. You can type in ingredients. You can just type in black beans, and every recipe that has black beans will pull up. It'll sort of be like a Pinterest style search engine where you can jump in there and really kind of be able to be a part of that and tell hunting stories throughout that kind of stuff. So
beautiful.
But we're also working on a big turkey film this year. We'll be hunting 9 states, doing the Grand Slam from a culinary perspective. And so that kicks off here in 10 days. I head to Florida for an Osceola, and then it's go till May 2nd when I will be up here Spokane hunting a Miriam.
There you go.
So I'm pretty stoked about finishing out in Washington. So
heck yeah. Well, maybe we'll connect. Maybe we'll dabble a little bit. Jeremiah, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of The Soulful Hunter. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you, and it's so much fun getting to know you even more. Guys, go follow Jeremiah and everything that he's doing. He is an amazing person, an amazing ambassador and advocate for hunting. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, leave a review. And with that being said, baby, freedom on and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.